Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with my friend Nick Pericle. He is the Vice President and Technology Solutions for Strategy and Solutions with ProfitOptics. And I'll let him go into a little bit more about, what ProfitOptics does. But anyway, I ran across Nick a couple of different times, but at an AI conference a while back, and he and I have kind of just shared a similar journey around this world of AI. And it was really a pleasure chatting with him. And he has become really one of the great thought leaders in wholesale distribution around the power of AI and what companies can do with it as soon as they become comfortable. And I think that is the great hurdle is that, companies are excited, but just don't really know what to do with it yet. And I think that's where people like Nick are going to be bridging that gap, primarily through education, not just selling cool stuff. It's really his philosophy. And I think, he shares this in here is really the education side, the teaching side, and trying to get people interested in knowing what's possible. And when they know what's possible, then they can create amazing solutions. And if they want to bring his company in to help, great. If they're not, ready to do that, great. He is just passionate about sharing what he has learned with other people. I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Moblico. Today, there are more connected devices in the US than there are people. The mobile experience has greatly changed your customers' and employees' behaviors and expectations, including how they communicate and exchange information at home, play, and work. Your customers expect faster service, convenience, and relevancy more than ever before. From custom mobile apps to robust mobile messaging solutions, Moblico provides the most comprehensive end-to-end mobile communication and outbound marketing solution to the wholesale distribution industry. Check out what Moblico has to offer at www.moblicosolutions.com. That's MOBLICO solutions.com. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Hey, Nick, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with me.
Thank you, Jason. I'm very excited to be here. Having been a listener over probably half a dozen different sessions over the years, it's a privilege to be here. So thank you.
Oh, fantastic, man. I really appreciate the kind words there. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, kind of where did ProfitOptics start?
ProfitOptics, I like to introduce this as the company that's made a really big impact, but you probably haven't heard about us. That's how I like to lead. Whether that hits or not, I'll leave that to others to decide.
Yeah.
Our company, ProfitOptics, started, there was a need in the distribution industry for pointed technology solutions to solve real business problems that weren't being addressed with new or the latest technology. So back in 2008, it's no secret that my father was the one who started ProfitOptics and has led ProfitOptics to where we are today. He was very focused on pricing, rebates, sales effectiveness, and the whole environment that goes into creating a strong culture, technology, and strategy around making a difference there. What my father found when he was doing this was that the ideas of what could be done were one thing, coming from experience, but then layering that with technology that could evolve and expand and continue to fill gaps was another. And so that was really where the company started, and we leaned into that technology aspect and continued to find ways where, as there have been more and more use cases of different types of tech, be that AI or new companies that come onto the scene, there is still an edge of capabilities that are now available to companies that can solve the same business problems that we're all still trying to solve. How do we make more money? How do we grow revenue? And how do we lower costs so that we can increase profitability?
Excellent. And your dad came out of the distribution industry, right? I mean, not like you're just kind of running out of technology schools and say, hey, you know what? I think I want to play distribution. I mean, he lived this for a long time.
He did. And the two stories that he shares that always make me blush a little bit when we're in a pitch session
Yeah.
is he shares he was selling medical supplies while I was in diapers. And while he was building up Profit Optics in the beginning, I was too busy playing Pokemon cards. And I disagree on that second one, but he wasn't wrong about
Okay.
the first one. So yeah, he came out of he worked for a large medical surgical distributor
Yeah.
in sales, carried a bag, and then helped build out a pricing and rebate model that really helped grow that profitability of that company. And he saw there being an opportunity to do that for other organizations in distribution overall.
So you decided to join the family biz, whether that was your decision or not. How did that occur?
My story started when I'm going to take you way back, Jason. I'll
Okay,
say
fair enough.
when I was in middle school, I was in sixth grade, and I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, one of the first counties in the country that signed a deal with Apple in order for every middle schooler and high schooler to get an Apple laptop. Now, it was an iBook at the time, and compared to what I'm running now with my MacBook Pro, it was
Sure.
probably very basic. That was my first exposure to my own laptop that I could configure, that I could work with. And the first thing that I did, I started a distribution pricing app. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I figured out how to bypass all of the controls on the system to install games to play with my friends.
Sure.
Like any kid
like
does.
any good middle schooler does. Absolutely.
And what we did is we would figure out how to play games over the LAN at school. We would do that on the weekends. We installed increasingly complex games and things like that. And my love for computers and moreover technology and connectivity ignited. So I did that during middle school. During high school, I got involved. And this was when social networks became really big. And we were really big on that. I go to college and I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I knew I was always good at math. I have a passion for history. I pursue that on the side, but it wasn't my main focus. I had a passion for math, and I was introduced to statistics. I had a professor who made our Stats 110 class at Brigham Young University out in Provo, Utah. He made that the most interesting class I had taken. It was my second semester there. I'm not going to say I fell in love with it because there were some difficult aspects of it, but I found it interesting. And moreover, Jason, it came naturally to me. These difficult concepts that for others really struggled with, I found that I was able to make connections and understand it, or I could figure out where to go get information. And I could navigate that easily. So I ended up becoming a stats major.
Okay.
That was what I did. Now, I tell you all of this because this leads up to this point. When I was in my senior year of college, I got involved at an accelerator and incubator program at Brigham Young. And I connected with an individual who was a chemical engineering PhD student. And he had created this IoT device. It was a smart insole that you put into your shoe, and it measures how well you were running. Has nothing to do with distribution or anything like that. But I was fascinated by this. And this is when mobile apps were getting really big. This was in 2012, 2013. The world of mobile apps was big. So what do? I say, I know stats. I'm interested in technology. I could design out and I could help build out an application. At a minimum, I could do the calculations and the formulas. So we partnered up. We built out an application. I won't go into all the details. If you catch me at an event, I'll tell you more. But one highlight from that experience, I was within 5 feet of Tom Brady. That's all I'll say. And then
there you go. All right. Fair enough.
We'll share more about that at another time. But that's where
absolutely.
I got really interested, built out technology. That leads up then, I was getting ready to graduate, and my dad was scaling the business. He had some aspirations of where he wanted to take it. I was either going to go work for a tech company or I was going to go help my father build his technology company, and ended up joining the business. And that's when I really got introduced to the world of distribution. And that would have been in 2015.
Nice. Fantastic journey, man. A lot of us got excited. And it's really interesting how, a stats class, of all things, really accelerated and, leveled up your interest on this. So, well, great.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me a little bit. Okay. So you joined a company in about 2015 and you all were making all kinds of little interesting products at this point. Tell me a little bit about the team then. I'm interested in your developers, where your developers are and how you connected with those folks.
I share this view with my father in our organization that we believe the best companies pull talent from wherever that talent is available.
Right.
And our model is currently served by we have consultants and product owners or technical program managers here in the United States that
Hmm.
engage with our clients in terms of understanding what are the problems to be solved, what are the right ways to solve those
Hmm.
problems, and solving problems repeatedly, providing value that way. We have a team of engineers, primarily in Serbia, in Eastern Europe,
Hmm.
who are the technical backbone of a lot of our operations. Now, I'll tell you,
Right.
Jason, when I explain this to folks who aren't in distribution, they immediately get it. It's a worldwide
Yep.
economy. There's talent all over the place, offshoring. When I explain it in distribution, people go to one area and they say, that must be because it's the cheapest option.
Sure.
And I'll
Sure.
tell you that always leads to some good, healthy debate
Yes.
because I'll address it directly. That is not the case.
Hmm.
What we have built up in Serbia is we've built up a rather large team who, through experience, through working together, we have trained them on what we do.
Hmm.
We have learned from them,
Hmm.
and we've really built up this laboratory of innovation where they can finish our sentences. We can introduce them to an electrical distribution organization. And just
Hmm.
by explaining that, they know what their problems are. They know what types of data systems they're likely running. And we can provide a lot of value there. So I spent a good amount of my time later in my career with Profit Optics. It was after I originally started and before what I'm doing now, helping build that team up. And I'll tell you, it's been one of the great
Right.
honors of my life to spend time with them, with our team members in Serbia, to get to know them, their
Hmm.
culture, to learn from them, and just overall create a lot of value for our clients with them.
Yeah, your father speaks incredibly highly of that team over there. He had this is probably 6 months ago. He shared that these are some of the most hardworking, honest, intelligent people he's ever met in his life. And he just said, that's why we do business in Serbia. That's why we have our development team there. I mean, because other companies, they go to, other Eastern European
Sure.
countries, they've found other solutions out there. But he said, this is where it worked for me.
Yeah.
So
And recently, Serbia has been a very hot topic because Serbia produces winners. And whether you're talking about the
absolutely.
Joker,
Oh,
whether you're
yeah.
talking about Nikola Jokic,
Yeah.
there are a lot of winners who
Yeah.
come out of Serbia, and again, I'm very fortunate to be
Absolutely.
associated with them.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Okay, so you've primarily worked with larger clients. I mean, typically with Profit Optics, but you kind of fell in love with an area a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and it's something you and I both share. So please tell me a little bit about your AI journey, my friend.
On November 30th, 2022, when OpenAI announced that ChatGPT was generally available to the public, I wish I could say it was that date that I signed up. It was a couple weeks later
Yeah.
that I signed up and I started playing with it. My world turned upside down. Assumptions that I had held on what was possible with technology, limitations that I believed were in place,
Hmm.
those started to crumble, and I had to rebuild the foundation upon which I was planning and building and executing a technology consulting organization.
Right.
And I don't think this is too unlike other times in life where I've realized that the way that something was not the only way of doing it, and there was possibly
Hmm.
a better way. Whether this was when I was in middle school working with computers early on, whether it's when I realized that
Sure.
you didn't have to build an application on the computer on the web or a desktop application. There was this mobile computing platform that you could work with. That those compare a little bit to what artificial intelligence enables you to do, but what I've seen
Mm.
specifically with generative AI is absolutely amazing. And for those who know me, I was we're filming this the day after Easter, Jason, and I was at an
Yes.
Easter party yesterday. People at church, my friends in the neighborhood, they're coming up to me and saying, "Nick, I took your advice. I signed up for ChatGPT. How come you didn't tell me about this sooner?" And I said, "I've been telling you about this for years."
Yeah.
So within
Yeah.
my own
Yeah.
circles, I can't help but talk about it
Sure.
throughout my whole life. I talk about things that I truly believe in and I'm excited about. So
Yeah.
generative AI, we did not do work with generative AI beforehand. I had
Hmm.
understood that there were natural language processing machines that could predict the next token. I knew that was possible. Didn't know when that was coming out. We had done things on natural language processing ourselves, on sentiment analysis, computer vision,
Hmm.
predictive analytics. We had done work around that over the last 10 years. But with
Yeah.
generative AI, yeah, ChatGPT, and then all of the subsequent advances have really forced me to rethink what are the right ways that distribution organizations and our own company can adapt this and continue to outperform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, like you, all of a sudden, I was blown away. It was that moment of awe. It's like, I can make this do what I want to. I think, again, with somebody who doesn't enjoy programming, that I can go in and create things without having to know how to code and do all of those things. Absolutely a fascinating. And I think, to your point about the friends that you've shared this with, I've done this in groups that I facilitate. Literally, I remember, God, it had to have been a year and a half ago or something, maybe a year or so ago, and these ops managers, were asking me, I think it was trying to set up an evaluation system for in their warehouse for their associates in there. And I said, well, let me show you a trick. And I shared the screen and I jumped on Chat GPT and I started, going through the motions. And my prompts were terrible at that time. I didn't really, I wasn't great at it, but the people on that call were just blown away. They were just like, oh my God, how did you know about this? How did you find out? And I said, well, let me just share a little bit more. And so I walked them through and they said, well, how much do you have to pay to get this? And I said, at the time, nothing, and
Nothing. Yeah.
it was that wake up moment. And I think that is exciting for me, is to be able to share that with people and see the look on their face and the excitement. And some don't get it and they don't want it, and that's fine. But there are those that just absolutely glom onto this and say, wow, what can I do? It's like unlocking the creativity in people. And I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing.
It really lowers the barrier to entry of being able to create something that you have always had an idea for, but
Yeah.
you maybe didn't have time. You didn't have access to resources in areas like that. And you and I've talked about this, Jason. One of the large beliefs that anchors me in what I do, it's a strong belief that in order to really create value or capture value with AI or use it appropriately and adapt your workflows, you have to take the time to really understand it. And I'm not saying textbook understand it
Mhm.
or understand technically how it works, but to use it and to view how it fundamentally acts differently than any other type of technology that we've worked with up to this point.
Mhm.
And I couple that with the belief that the industry in which we work, wholesale distribution,
Yeah.
and the variety of verticals that we work within, there are a number of technology players who, for a long time, have been the guides of what technology is capable of and where technology
Sure.
is going.
Sure.
And artificial intelligence and generative AI are changing those dynamics. And so, this belief that you got to understand it, that there are new ways that it's behaving, and there are new types of models that at this point, no one can really keep up with everything that's happening. I'm a huge
Mhm.
believer that the right way to start is by using generative AI tools yourself to solve problems, ask it what it can do, interact with it like a human, like a teammate rather than a tool,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing different ways in which to solve problems. I was on a call earlier today with an executive who I can clearly tell has taken the time to interact with. He was actually quite proud of himself because he was using Claude. And he
Okay.
said, I had
Yeah.
evaluated, I didn't want ChatGPT, I didn't want Copilot, I wanted Claude. And I said, all right, just by that, I know that you're one of the few who are taking the time. The types of questions that he was asking and how this would be implemented, what this would look like,
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
tell that he had already done the work of educating himself on what was possible versus
Right.
asking me, what can this do? Because when you really explain what it can do, it's almost the definition of unbelievable. You cannot
Mhm.
believe that you can feed in a list of your product your numbers, your manufacturing part numbers, your descriptions, and a short description, and you can create full-page web content that's accurate. That's an unbelievable statement to make unless you particularly have played with these tools and understand what they're capable of.
Absolutely. I mean, it was funny. I was having this conversation with my wife this weekend, and she uses this quite a bit in her work, and primarily with customer experience and customer segmentation in a marketing side of an organization. And talking about, taking all of this data all over the place and, starting to bring these different data points together and these different lists, really, this customer list or prospect list, bringing it into just one cohesive unit. And she said that would have taken her days. I mean, 5 to 10 days to actually bring that together. And she was able to do that in maybe an hour of really massaging it, first blush, second blush, third blush. And it is shocking what you can do if you play. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by NSQL Distribution Software. NSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I say distribution-based because that's important. Many alternatives out there say they do distribution, but they really aren't very good at it. They're generally watered-down manufacturing packages with a few distribution features tacked on. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than NSQL Distribution Software at www.nsql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Do you remember when we were back in June, when we were at that DSG conference and the gentleman, Zach Kask, got up? One of the statements he made that I thought was pretty profound was asking these tools what they're good at. Typing into ChatGPT, what should I use you for? Or Claude or Gemini, any of them. And I thought that was just absolutely, that was one of those mind-blowing points. It's like, that's how you research. What are you best at? And what should I use you for?
And having those conversations.
Yes, it's fascinating. I mean,
yeah, it sounds crazy to say. People that I've talked to who are outside of our industry, who are more what I would really consider on the forefront of generative AI research. They either work for a lab or they're adjacent to one of the big labs that we would all know about. Is when they talk about what these AI models are capable of, they say it acts much less like an algorithmic computer or like a program. And it really feels like a mind that we are continuing to map and understand it. Now, that can sound really scary and Skynet-like and things like this. But I think to be honest, it's not too dissimilar from any other discovery in human history where we get piecemeal information as we go and we start to cobble it together is probably the right way to say that up front. Yeah. And then we get a more full picture and then we understand it. Then we can start applying it. And then we can start seeing what it's now enabling us to do, which previously it wasn't possible to accomplish that without generative AI. So I get passionate, I get excited, I talk really fast when we do this. And the presentations that I've given, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
I give presentations at various industry associations and for organizations where I show versus tell what these tools can do. Side story, one of these presentations that we gave, it was a rather large one, ChatGPT went down and the actual model itself didn't work. And it said that it ended up being down for something like 45 minutes. And of course, it was an hour and a half presentation. It was down for the first 45. So I switched over to Claude and then I went to Copilot and we made the best of it. So there's a little bit of risk in doing this, but I think the value far outweighs this, where when you can show this in real time, and better yet, when you can adapt on the fly to questions that people are asking from the audience, someone will say, hey, can this help us? Here's a real example. Can this help us with tariffs? And I say, well, what are you struggling with tariffs? Knowing full well, because this is the number one topic in distribution these days.
Right.
They're saying, well, we need to understand what are the impacts? What are the HTS codes? that are going to be impacted. And then we need to modify some of our Excel spreadsheets for this. So why don't we try that in real time? And they kind of sit back thinking, wait, you're going to go off script of this presentation that you've prepared? You don't have
Right.
slides to show this? And when we go through and we're asking ChatGPT to do one thing, we're going to Perplexity, we're asking it to do another, and then we're bringing that information together. And then we'll jump over to a tool like Replit and create a little application that consolidates the information. You can show it in a way. It's pretty remarkable what you
Sure.
can do and how much people get it when they see it.
Mhm.
That's an exciting thing for us.
Yeah, you're turning lead into gold. I mean, this is really, it's pretty fascinating, watching you do that in real time. And I remember I've seen presentations. Again, I was, probably in my 20s, and I remember seeing a gentleman who was able to do some things around, some distribution ERPs and things like that. And he had just, he was a computer science gentleman who just shared some ideas. And I remember being mesmerized that he was able to do that, real time on the screen. And literally, I'm looking at kind of poking my dad, and I'm like, we got to find someone like this. He goes, yeah, those are tough to find, son. And it was really interesting. But both of us were very mesmerized by that. And I think when you do, those types of presentations, you are really, again, unlocking creativity. That is the thing that I see in those audiences.
That's the idea. And it's to show, again, what is capable so you can really imagine in a realistic way what's possible. And you walk
Mhm.
away from this feeling empowered, one that you can go do these individual use cases yourself. And we're just showing what you can do
Right.
so that as we're building out larger, much more sophisticated, integrated, and then eventually automated tool sets, we're using these technologies that are available. So that's really what we are doing at Profit Optics is
Yeah.
educating ourselves so we can educate others,
Mhm.
all in the effort to build out the best type of large platform applications for our clients in wholesale distribution.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's that key theme of education. You're educating yourself, but also then sharing that. And I think it also, when you share that kind of information, you get people excited and they learn. But when they look then at your solution, they trust. They begin to trust that you actually can do this. And it's not smoke and mirrors, that actually there is a lot of thought behind it, and you understand the synergies between these different tools to build what you've built. So I think it enhances trust. I think definitely your educational presentations is really not, I'm teaching them to be their own, AI wizards. It's, I'm getting you to a point of comfort.
That's the idea. And I believe that the technology community that services distribution, I've found a number of people who agree with this statement that we, in general, all jumped way too fast into this idea that everything is AI powered with an expectation that the industry
Yes.
was going to keep up with what that means.
Right.
And I'll use the term that it was a failure of education on behalf of the technology community in helping our customers, the people that we are in business to help them succeed in business. We did not take the time to guide them along that journey instead of providing a solution. And I find more and more people who are recognizing that. And
Yes.
honestly, that's encouraging because I shared in my story, I didn't know distribution before I came into Profit
Mhm.
Optics. I have a lot of pride in the types of companies that we work with. When I see my clients, I see their trucks on the freeway, I take pictures of
Right.
them.
Right.
Uh, I really enjoy the camaraderie that this industry has with both
Mhm.
distributors themselves, and I see the way they interact, as well as with the technology community. And
Mhm.
so I find being a part of that with other providers, whether they're product companies or other consultants, there's all sorts of great text messages and conversations happening. And we're all trying to figure out how can we help our clients, the distributors themselves,
Mhm.
better understand so that they can make a decision and reap the benefits of implementing technology like this.
Hmm. A thought occurred to me. If I look at where technology people, how they personally align, there are a lot of similarities with independent distribution people, entrepreneurial, willing to try a whole bunch of stuff and see if it works, versus a lot of really big corporate entities that tend to be more risk adverse and, beholden to a quarterly number and things like that. I just kind of all of a sudden realized there's a whole lot more similarities between tech, entrepreneurs and distribution entrepreneurs.
There's a lot within that, I think. I had an explanation to it was a capital group that they had made some forays into it already, and they were asking me what my thoughts were. Why is it that manufacturing seems to get investment, they seem to have technology and distributors not so? And we went back and we looked at the ideas of where did manufacturing companies come from versus where do distributor companies come from?
Mhm,
And more
mhm,
often than not, a manufacturing company gets started because there's an engineer who invents something and has a process on how to invent it. So by
mhm,
nature, there's an engineering mindset in place. A
mhm,
distribution organization is a salesman, is an entrepreneur who recognizes there's a need in the market.
mhm.
And whether they themselves can fill that need, they can find out how to get that need filled. Meaning
Right.
they might not be the one to make the product, but they can fill it. So if you go back to just what is the fundamental value prop for each of these companies,
Yeah.
distribution organizations exist to fulfill the needs of their customers. More often than not, getting them the physical product where they need it, when they need it, at the right
Sure.
cost,
Sure.
but also in increasingly other ways. How can they provide them other value added services?
Yeah.
How can they
Yeah.
train them? So hey, maybe we're not too dissimilar.
Exactly. No, Nick, I mean, I think absolutely this is, this epiphany moment. It's like, well, isn't that really what technology companies do?
Find a need
They
and
find a
then solve
need.
it. Yeah,
That's right. They find a need and they solve it. So interesting,
I
interesting
love
thoughts.
that. Yeah, great
Hey,
thought.
yeah. So real quickly, I want to pivot here real quickly, if I could, to looking at that education again. Tell me what you're up to now. What exciting stuff are you doing, especially around the Gen AI stuff?
So where I'm spending my time is I'm trying to be in industry as much as possible. I find that when I get behind, I've heard it jokingly referred to as the IT ivory tower, where you're behind your big 28, 30-inch
Yes.
monitors, you got your nice ergonomic keyboard and your nice webcam all set up. You lose touch with
Mhm.
reality really, really fast, especially when you're trying to implement new technologies. I did not come up with the term. It's obvious I didn't come up with the term, but I wish I did, of forward deployed engineer. That comes from Palantir and their
Okay.
whole mindset of putting technology engineers in the field with the ones who are doing the work, the ones who are really
Mhm.
providing the value. So I've adopted that mindset and I try and spend as much time as I can with our clients, with potential clients that we're working with prospects, visiting them in their boardrooms, in their branches, understanding what their sales teams are going through. And then in industry associations where I
Mhm.
can meet with a group of people and talk with them. A lot of times I'm doing these workshops or trainings on what is AI capable of, showing them
Mhm.
and actually forcing executive teams to try AI so they can understand it. And
Mhm.
fun note, when you do that and you have a clause in your agreement to say, when we're in this workshop, you're agreeing not to multitask because the urge is going to be there.
It is. Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to be, we ask you, stay focused. And if you do, you'll come out of this with a new understanding. It's really fun when you have to call an executive out during the break and say, hey, I saw you on your phone. I'm going to ask you.
Hmm.
That was a new experience for me,
Yes.
Jason. But
Yes.
spending time in industry, teaching, educating, but also learning myself.
Yes.
Because again, I find that even I can get disconnected from what's really happening. And
Mhm.
I can become too idealistic on what is a distribution sales rep really willing to do if I forget what the realities are that they're dealing with? So
Yeah.
having that balance helps us and our team design, deploy, manage the change for any new type of implementation that we're rolling out. Being with the customer trumps everything.
Sure. Sure. I can envision walking around the room with a little basket, asking people to put cell phones in the basket.
I have not done that, but maybe next time I will.
Sure, sure. Well, and I think it's also important. I mean, if you are going to do these with private organizations, is, considering doing it away from the corporate headquarters,
Yeah,
and actually
yeah.
doing it on a neutral site. And yes, asking them, if you really want to do this, let's put the other devices away and I need you in the game here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we make it interesting. We make it fun around where AI came from. When was the term AI first used? People love to throw around, well, AI didn't just come out. Everyone knows that. But when did it come out? When did it start? What precipitated the changes
Right.
of generative AI now? So we make it interesting. And then it's really fun when you get people on their computers and they'll start working and ripping. And then my favorite is when they riff, where they'll
Yeah.
actually go off in a different direction. And maybe we're working on a quoting solution, how to handle quotes and how to negotiate and how to upload products. And you have someone who said, guys, I just solved this one problem that I've been trying on and it did it for me. How did it know that? You can't script those moments.
Well, I think you just kind of answered my question. I was really looking for, what have you seen as a byproduct of these types of sessions that you've done with private companies?
Every time that we've done this, you will have an individual or two who has had some idea that they've been trying to solve in their mind. And they end up staying late at the office that night, or they go home and they open their computer and they'll stay up till midnight. They'll stay up till 1 a.m. using generative AI to solve this problem that they didn't know how to solve previously. And they'll come
Mhm.
back the next morning. They'll be the first ones there. They'll come up to me and say, Nick, you won't believe what I was able to do now. And I say, okay, will you go ahead and will you share with the group opening what you just explained to me? And Jason, that's become so common that I now put that into the agenda of
Mhm.
sharing what we did the night before. I don't know who it's going to be. When
Right.
I walk in, I can maybe pick out, but every single time that's happened. And I think how I would classify that is this: the excitement of being able to use technology to create. I share this belief with my father that we were made to create, that we were made to
Yeah.
use our abilities to make things better, to improve processes. And we have this innate desire to do that. Now, that might not always come out immediately. Oftentimes we get very comfortable where we are. So
Mhm.
and the ability to create and creativity is a muscle. Everyone has it. Everyone
Right.
is by nature, being a human being, you are creative, but unlocking that, helping people realize that it's possible, I think that is, for me, the most rewarding part of it because people
Mhm.
come away now they're motivated and they're given a new tool that again acts more like a teammate to help create.
I often refer to ChatGPT as my little PhD buddy. Yeah. Because there's I talk to it and people make fun of me because I do talk to it more like a teammate, and I thank it and I congratulate it. Although I did hear that thanking and saying please are taking a lot of computing power.
Yeah,
It's really interesting. That was an interesting article, but
yeah,
yeah,
I've seen that too, and I think Sam Altman, he was responding to someone on responding to someone on X, and he said someone was saying, "Hey, should you just not do the computing power if they say please or thank you?" And he said, "No, it's well worth it because at one point
right.
the robots are gonna be together, and then they're gonna look at Jason, they're gonna say, no, leave him be. He said please and thank you.'" Okay.
Yeah. So I will be spared in the robot apocalypse.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had to continually remind myself and my team members at ProfitOptics, and I'm reminded by others in the industry that within distribution companies, there is an absolute wealth of knowledge and a strong understanding of what needs to be done. Oftentimes, they're looking for the catalyst to do it.
Yes.
And these types of workshops, and before we were doing AI workshops, we were engaging to brainstorm different ways to apply technology or integrations in order to solve some problem that everyone agreed we had. There just wasn't consensus on how to go about implementing the fix or the solve.
Mhm.
And I'm encouraged by the empowerment that we're able to give people to use technology in a new and a creative way. Cases where we will actually help co-create with them some solution to help make the company more profitable, to implement a fix on
Mhm.
a large leak that they had, or some large customer experience improvement that previously they didn't think was possible, or they were wandering. They didn't know how to exactly make that happen.
So one thing that, I just wanted to touch on, and you had shared with me earlier that your company is primarily engaged in larger entities, larger distribution companies. But if we look at this type of education that you're sharing, it's really quite scalable down as well as, the big kids get to play with it. But if you think about, the $30 million distributor, the 20 million, they can do it too. I mean, I think that's the myth is that, it's only for the big kids, and it's really not. It's really for anyone who has that desire to be creative.
There was a post on X that I read, and it was by someone who used to be with OpenAI and he's now with Gemini. And he shared that one of the prevailing ideas for the 2020s, let's say until the end of the decade, is going to be that these forefront models and artificial intelligence and the capabilities are going to continue to advance in what they're able to do, while the cost is essentially going to go to zero. And I know in distribution, especially technology, the first question we get asked is, so what's your cost? What's your per seat license?
Sure.
How much is this going to cost me? And for good reason, the way, just by nature, how distributors operate and EBITDA percentages that we're talking about, that is a reality. And for a long time, that has been a constraint what tech has been available to these types of companies. I think AI is going to flip that on its head. I think just by nature of what AI is going to enable in terms of point solutions that are going to come on the market, what AI is going to enable in terms of self-serve, where you have your $30 million, $50 million distributor and you have a technology-minded junior associate, they're going to be able to create things just because they don't know any better. They're not beholden to some legacy manner of thinking or way of doing it, and they're going to go find a tool that allows them to fill a need that previously required a much larger solution. So I'm very optimistic about the technology solution renaissance that AI is going to empower within the industry. That's what it really is exciting me right now.
Nice. Well, Nick, we've been rolling along here for a little bit. We should probably start wrapping it up here. First and foremost, thank you again for coming on. But before I let you go, share with the audience, how can someone learn a little bit more about your organization and maybe connect with you and talk about this educational side?
My company, ProfitOptics, is always looking for organizations that we can partner with in order to help them accelerate their aspirations with their business through the creative use of technology. Our website, ProfitOptics, OPTICS.com. But you can always find me as well on LinkedIn at Nick Pericle. I post about how to learn about AI, examples of AI in areas like that. And I'd be happy to point you in the direction of whether that be really good YouTube videos, podcast, or share with you a couple of tips and tricks myself. It would be a pleasure. And Jason, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Of course, man. No, I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to do this. And hey, I look forward to seeing, I believe in June, we will cross paths. So
I mean it. I like spending time in industry so I can learn what's really happening in order to best serve the industry.
Excellent. Again, hey, thank you so much for jumping on here.
Jason, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.